Learned audience, respected panelists and moderator of the session, invited guests, particularly my respected teacher, Professor Azad Chaudhry, and some of our teachers. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, Assalamu alaikum. At the very outset, I'd like to express my thanks and gratitude to the organizers of this great event, who invited me to speak in front of such an august gathering. I'm really honored. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. The topic of this discussion of this session is significance of adverse drug reaction, reporting, and current readiness of Bangladesh pharma industry. I'll actually focus a little bit wider than that of focusing on particularly on industry. I'll focus on some other related sectors as well. This presentation is particularly prepared for this occasion, that is Samsung H Memorial Conference 2019 on Bangladesh pharmaceuticals industry and current issues. I'm Saidur Rahman, as already mentioned. I'm working in the Department of Pharmacology in Bangamundhu Sheikh Mujib Medical University. Before I start, I just want to have a disclaimer and disclosure of conflict of interest. Because I'm a pharmacologist, I like to mention, and I have a declare, that I have never received any financial or other types of support from any pharmaceutical industry. The views expressed in this presentation is absolutely based on scientific evidence, published documents, and some unpublished reliable sources. The content and spirit of this presentation is not influenced by any kind of obligation or relationship. If any of this content cause any damage to any product or industry, that is absolutely unintentional and expressed on good faith. All of us know that adverse drug reaction is a response of a drug is noxious and unintended, and which occurs at doses used in man for prophylaxis and diagnosis. But the most important point is, virtually, medicine as a chemical substance, they're unbiased regarding benefits and risk. And no medicine, I repeat, no medicine is ever risk-free, ever, never ever was risk-free. And from the very old age, medicine is always recognized as a potentially dangerous substance. That was the basic. And based on that backdrop, a French playwright, actor, Molière, he wrote a satiric statement which later became a famous quotation. That is, to undergo treatment, you have to be very healthy, because apart from your sickness, you have to withstand the medicine. So that apparently sounds peculiar, but at the end of the day, finally, we have realized that absolutely we need that. Before entering into the significance, we need to understand why it is so important. What is the magnitude or volume or size of this problem? In USA, approximately 1 in 7 hospital inpatients experiences ADR. And deaths all over the world, through a meta-analysis, it is learned that hospital admissions, deaths are related to 0.24 to 2.9%. It's unbelievably high. And as a cause of hospital admission, adverse drug reaction constitutes 0.3 to 5% all over the world. And only in USA, that is the 4th major cause of death. Adverse drug reaction is the 4th cause of major cause. Let us look at our country. If we look at the Dhaka Medical College, at their outpatient department, 11.9% of the patients are diagnosed as ADR. Though that percent appears high, in Bangamundhu Sheikh Mujib Medical University, ADR cases are diagnosed in outpatient department is around 3.75%. And whenever we enter into the hospital, that is in the inpatient of BSMMU, 3.40% patients are diagnosed as ADR. On the top, ADR are experienced more by elderly individual, female, and the people who are taking more medicine. They are the people who are experiencing ADR more. And each addition of one medicine always multiply hazard of an ADR by 1.14%. So whenever a person is getting 3, 4, 5 medicine, the possibility of developing ADR as well as it is becoming more hazardous. That is the incidence only. But all of us love to know about the economic impact, because for decision making, and this is now globally accepted norm, that how important it is. We are just explaining one idea, that is cost of illness model. If we apply that model, cost of illness model, for calculating the cost of ailment related to ADR, only in USA 20 years back, that is the last study, 19 years back in 2000, that was $177 billion only in USA. So we can easily presume, though the calculation is very difficult, so it is not replicated later, but that is the final last study. So we can assume that how important it is, what amount of economic burden ADR puts on the overall healthcare. But how far we know about this ADR? We know very little, because some of the risks are known when the medicine first enter into the market. At the time of licensing, we know very little. We know some of the adverse effects that appeared only in trial. Some information only comes into the light later on, when more people started using that. Why it happens so? Because pre-registration clinical trials involve only few thousands of people. So only 2,000 to 5,000 people are exposed to a particular drug before licensing. So the rest of the people administering or taking the medication and getting exposure, they demonstrate different kind of adverse effects which were less common. And because these adverse events were less common, those were not observed at the level of clinical trial, because at that time that was conducted only in few individuals. On that top, racial, genetic, and environmental factors influence the pattern to a great extent. So not only the number, not only the population who were designed or defined, moreover the racial and genetic and environmental factor also contributes more. And there is a general statement. Usually people love to say that approximately we know half at the time of entry. At the time of registration, we know half of a medicine. And the remaining half we know in the next 15 years. That applies both for benefits as well as for adverse events. So, whenever a drug is entering into the market at primary point, we know only half of the benefits and half of the adverse effects of that particular drug. And this statement is more applicable for adverse effect, because the studies are conducted to maximize the benefits. How we know about those? The remaining half, how we can know about this? That is our point of discussion. We can only know about this remaining half through ADR reporting. So we know half at the time of licensing, we know the rest through ADR reporting. And that is why we know very little about ADR. And that is only tip of the iceberg. What actually we do with those ADR reports? Lots of actions are taken on the basis of these ADR reports. I'm just giving you some examples, like it is like ceftriaxone. I'm demonstrating it's from the consolidated list of products. And here it is stated that US FDA advises that hyperbilirubinemic neonates should not receive ceftriaxone, And the action is based on reports of death of neonates worldwide. And that death was related to calcium ceftriaxone precipitates in the kidney and lung. So what happened to ceftriaxone? That is an addition of an adverse effect or inclusion of that. What happened to carbamazepine? There was a statement that they modified the level. What happened? Stevens-Johnson syndrome and toxic epidermal necrolysis. They included that particular gene, that is HLA-B. We have a panelist here, HLA-B1502LA, which is common in Asian ancestry. And FDA recommended, before administering carbamazepine, go for screening. So that this information is derived through reporting. What about rofecoxib? US FDA, there is a marketing authorization of the product. That is, marketing authorization of the rofecoxib suspended due to adverse cardiovascular event through a clinical trial. So all these decisions are made on the basis of adverse reaction reporting. What we respond in Bangladesh regarding ceftriaxone, we included this in our formulary. That is, in premature neonates, that may displace bilirubin, and therefore it is contraindicated in neonates with jaundice. That is the way we interpret from the ADR report and the global decisions. What we wrote in our carbamazepine section, we mentioned that side effect is Stevens-Johnson syndrome. That is we mentioned. But how the background story is that happened as a consequence of reporting of ADR and the association of that ADR with particular Asian ancestry people having positive gene. And regarding rofecoxib, we have withdrawn. And that is, the marketing authorization was suspended based on the report of ADR. Lots of medicines are withdrawn as a consequence of ADR reporting. Some of them were in the market in Bangladesh, some are not. Those are fenclofenac, indoprofen, phenylbutazone, lots of medicine like noscapine, troglitazone, tarfenadine, this was there, astemizole was here. We can remember cisapride, we can remember rofecoxib, we can remember some of the glitazones as well. So now I'm coining the term, that is pharmacovigilance. This is an actually organized system. That is the science and activities relating to the detection, assessment, understanding, and prevention of adverse effects to any other drug-related problems. So we knew about beforehand that adverse drug reactions are causing a huge burden, both in terms of health, in terms of financial burden. There is an organized effort that is named as pharmacovigilance. And that was designed particularly to detect unknown safety problem, to detect increases frequency. Say, for instance, the frequency was 1%, that is gradually increased in particular population. If there is any identification of risk factor, like comorbidities, or as we have identified that neonates should not receive, this is like identification of the risk factor. Quantifying the risk. What is the proportion? That is a particular term, number needed to harm. That means, আমরা কতজনকে দিলে পরে একজনের adverse effect হবে. So that is the quantification of risk. And that is very important to assess the risk of a medicine and preventing patients from being affected unnecessarily. So these are the objectives, and based on this pharmacovigilance concept, globally there is a system in place to report and monitor. And this is different. That is, unfortunately, after 40 years of pharmacovigilance, even then, not a two country is now in the same plane. They didn't agree to make a same form even. So that is in the United Kingdom, it is named as yellow card. In the United States of America, that is named as FEARS, that is FDA Adverse Event Reporting System. India, they have a separate form like for consumer and for the prescriber. And in Bangladesh, we have a form that is hard copy, that is suspected ADR form. We have a different set. As it appears, you can easily recognize that this is different in UK, USA, India, and Bangladesh, in all over the world. But what we do with that, pharmacovigilance, that is Uppsala Monitoring Center and WHO, they recommend that please share data. That is the fundamental. That is, please share your finding to the global community so that they can decide. And after compilation of those documents and reports, they publish, EUMC publish a report annually. But regarding the role of industry, there are certain guidelines. US FDA has got a particular guidance for industry, that is E2E pharmacovigilance planning. Similar guideline is there for Canada, Health Canada. They also have a reporting adverse drug reactions to marketed health products, that is guidance document for industry. So that means globally, ADR is seriously recognized by the global researcher and the organizations. There are certain initiatives there. There are certain global consensus, some are country initiatives. So we will now look into the Bangladeshi preparedness or readiness. So are we really prepared? Yes, we are. We have formulated a national guideline. That is the basis. We already have a national guideline on pharmacovigilance in Bangladesh that is in place. We have linked in Bangladesh, there's a link, a bridge between this regulatory system of pharmacovigilance national guideline with the industry. I'm just identifying the area where they're linked. This is the flowchart, and at the beginning of this flowchart, pharmaceutical industries are mentioned as reporter, one of the reporter. In addition to physician, patient, and other healthcare providers, pharmaceutical industry are also identified and categorized as a reporter. And regarding the objective of this guideline, it is mentioned that monitoring and engaging pharmaceutical manufacturers and other suppliers in the pharmaceutical industry. So that is very much there in the document, that the pharmaceutical industry will play a significant role in generating data, in collecting information on adverse drug reaction. And there's a newsletter here in Bangladesh, DGDA, that is ADRM cell, they publish a newsletter that is there. But the most important point is this: ethics of informing about risk. That is the fundamental point. To know of something that is harmful to another person who does not know that and not telling him or her about that risk is absolutely unethical. আমরা যদি কোনো মানুষের জন্য কোনো ক্ষতিকারক কোনো কিছু সম্পর্কে জেনে যাই যেটা তিনি জানেন না, তাহলে সেটা তাকে না বলা বা না জানানো অনৈতিক। এটা হচ্ছে আজকে বারবার বলবো আমি এর পরেও। Let us have a look into the physicians' status. How are they behaving right now? Physicians of Bangladesh, I am also a physician, but I will disclose some of the research findings that may affect. Physicians aware about ADR monitoring program in Bangladesh, there's a study there. We conducted this study. We found that 65%, that is quite high, and that happened because a significant proportion of the respondents were young physicians who were trained in that particular institutions. But whenever they were asked about this question, have you ever seen an ADR form? Unbelievably low. 65% people are aware about this pharmacovigilance activity, but only 8% have ever seen any ADR form. Do you know about the reporting procedure? There is only 4% responded yes. They know about the reporting procedure. Are you trained about how to submit the ADR form? None. Believe me, that is the study result. 0% are trained to submit. They were never trained to submit how to submit the ADR. Have you ever reported to ADR? None. The study physicians never reported to ADR-AC in Bangladesh. And I again reiterate the fact. To know of something that is harmful to another person who does not know that, not telling him or her about that risk is absolutely unethical. So none ever reported. But as what we have seen in Dhaka Medical, in Salimullah, in BSMMU or any hospital, definitely people are encountering ADR. They're diagnosed, they're being treated as well. I will show later on. And for that reason, to make it more understandable to the physician, Pharmacovigilance Authority, they have redefined the definition of ADR. they make it in a different way. Because they redefine that the drug-induced disease that does not differ significantly from the natural form and therefore should be investigated as such. কারণ ডাক্তাররা রোগী দেখেন, ওনারা ADR খোঁজার চাইতে ওনাদের যদি বলা হয় যেটা একটা রোগ হিসাবে দেখো, এটা একটা ওষুধজনিত রোগ, তাহলে এবং এটাকে অন্যান্য রোগের মতোই চিকিৎসা করতে হবে, এই ডেফিনেশনটা যদি অ্যাপ্লাই করা হয় তাহলে ওই যে নক্সাস ইফেক্ট এবং অন্যান্য সেটার চাইতে তখন ডাক্তারের ডে টু ডে লাইফের সঙ্গে অনেকখানি রিলেটেড হয়ে যায়। What about the ADR reporting in the researcher community in Bangladesh? I just have searched. You can also conduct that. In PubMed, we found 320 articles in PubMed having the keyword adverse in Bangladesh in the title and abstract, indicating that these studies mention somewhere adverse reactions. If we conduct the search in Banglajol, that is the Bangladeshi journals only, we found only 21 articles that is having adverse reaction, and Banglajol is not Bangladesh is required for that purpose. But of these 320 articles from PubMed and 21 from Banglajol, I mentioned none, but I found later on one article was found to have reporting history. None reported. Actually, only one article has got relevance with the reporting. Unfortunately, as already shown in the video, that is the minimum reporting criteria was met in all of these articles at least. Though there was identifiable patient, there was identifiable reaction, medicine, and reporter, so that was a valid case. But in spite of that fact, 320 articles and 21 in Bangladesh, all these 340 research articles, they mentioned about ADR, but they have never reported to ADR. So it's not an issue, only that is, I am again considering and raising the issue of ethics, that is to know something. For a research you are knowing about the ADR of a particular person, you are not reporting, that is absolutely unethical. Now let us have a look into the national situation, that is national pharmacovigilance situation at a glance. Bangladesh has submitted the first batch of report in 2014 to Uppsala Monitoring Center. That is the primary footstep you will have to enter into the world of pharmacovigilance. And Bangladesh became 120th member of WHO pharmacovigilance program. And that is displayed in, if you enter into the WHO UMC, you will find that here we are. They mentioned it clear that Bangladesh full member since 2014. But since 2014, how many adverse reactions are reported to ADRA? 2,200. But the promising information is the proportion of ADR reports submitted by the industries is constituting 70% of those 2,200. But once again, the number of industries submitted ever a report is less than 10. Please note it. Only 10 or less. Only 5 to 6 so far I know. Only 5 to 10 industries ever reported ADR to ADRSC. After scrutiny, the individual case safety report, that is the standard term for ICSR, for globally uniform term for ADR, only 450 of that 2,200 cases were eligible to be submitted to Uppsala Monitoring Center. So it may appear satisfactory, but I just want to explain it, how low it is. This is the global standard, that is every member country annually should send over 200 reports per million inhabitants. কোনো একটা দেশে 10 লক্ষ লোক থাকলে বছরে 200 রিপোর্ট পাঠানোর কথা। I'm just recalculating it, extrapolating in Bangladesh situation, 200 for 170 million. Bangladesh supposed to send 34,000 reports per annum. In spite of that, we sent only 450 in last 4 years. So we definitely have entered into the global field, But still, we need to improve a lot because we are reporting very less. But is it unique for Bangladesh? No. I'm just trying to explain the geographical distribution of ADR. That is a VZ Access, a global platform open to all. Here we see Africa and Asia. Regarding paracetamol, only 1% from Africa and 33% from Asia. That is the proportion of ADR submitted regarding paracetamol. Globally, 34% ADR of paracetamol submitted by Asia and Africa, but the population of this Asia and Africa is 76.4%. Whereas, on the other hand, if we look at Europe and America, regarding paracetamol, they submitted 63% with only a population of 23% of the world. So it's quite disproportionate. Having 76% people, we report very little. Only 23%, they report much about paracetamol. We are not entering into the detail of the nature of the adverse effect. I'm just going through another medicine so that we can understand that this is not an unique one. If we look at diazepam, if we look at Asia and Africa, we find that only 0 from Africa and 14% from Asia. That is proportion of ADR about diazepam. Only 14% are reported from Asia and Africa in combined, with the 76% population of the world. Whereas, if we look at Europe and America regarding diazepam, we see 49 and 32. That means 81% of ADR related to diazepam. These reports are submitted from Asia, Europe and America, who constitutes only 23% of the global population. That indicates clearly that is Asia and African countries are reporting very low. So Bangladesh is not an exception as we are. But what we are doing to the globe, to know of something, as I mentioned, that is harmful to another, who does not know. We are knowing from Europeans and Americans, but not contributing to the global knowledge. We are not participating in the global knowledge building process. So we are getting benefit from the report of the Europeans and Americans, but we are not providing the feedback to them. So this is absolutely unethical. We always give an excuse that we don't have enough sensitivity, we don't have enough laboratory support, we cannot spend much time for diagnosis, and that is the major reason, because we are not confirmed that this is an ADR. But confirmation of ADR is not necessary for reporting. This should be clear to everyone. It is not a requirement to become confirmed. There are lots of methods. The people from the regulatory process, they will filter. There are lots of filters then. But our responsibility is to report only. How dangerous a medicine depends on how much we know about the risk. That is the point. If we know about the risk, if more we know about the risk, we can more accurately prescribe or select, or we can assess the risk benefit. Unless we know about the risk accurately, we cannot assess. And the major way to know about this risk is ADR reporting. So in order to enable everybody to decide prudently, to assess risk and benefit, we need to stop selecting, should think, and to think, we need to provide information, because they will think about risk and benefit. For that purpose, they need information about risk in order to compare risk and benefit. So if they are provided information, only then they can judge the risk and benefit, and then they will write. And that will become a rational prescription then. I'm just giving a case history. This was the first case of levofloxacin-induced fatal toxic epidermal necrolysis. This was published in Annals of Medicine. In 2004, a young boy of 15 years age, came to a hospital, government hospital, took the treatment, and he was prescribed levofloxacin. I just deleted the picture just immediately before because I thought it might become unethical, because that young boy brought to the hospital after 8 days of prescribing levofloxacin in 2004. I'm talking about 2004. That was the first case. With severe form of Steven Johnson. Later on, that was diagnosed as toxic epidermal necrolysis. And in spite of all effort, that young boy died. Sorry, extremely sorry. I was just anticipating that might happen. So I have a different setup of arrangement. How long should we wait? How long we should simply look at this preventable or the manageable event in this manner? I'm just talking an untold story about Titanic. All of us know about the Readiness story. We have possibly we have seen this movie. This is the scene just before striking to the iceberg. We know the story detail, but possibly most of us don't know that just before the ship struck the iceberg, the seamen from the deck were shouting, "Watch out on starboard." But the captain and engineer in the bridge, they mentioned, "Wait, we are in the middle of a conference on iceberg avoidance." We know the consequence. If that happened nowadays, people might have remained busy to take the pictures, or will think that possibly it will be okay, I'll be probably fine. Should we discuss an issue like ADR in the seminar, symposia, meeting, workshops, like the captain and the engineers of the Titanic? Should we remain busy with taking photographs? I just have deleted the photograph. Should we remain busy with the taking photographs or reporting, writing only research articles? Should we think that these ADRs will not happen to me or any of my closer one? Who are the persons actually in charge of this reporting? Physicians, nurses, pharmacists, other healthcare providers, pharmaceutical industry, public health programs like EPI or vitamin A, patients and consumers. There are lots of people who need to work, who need to start working, reporting. Should we wait for the day when all the reporters will come forward, that is from physician, nurse, pharmacist, industries, patient, they will start reporting? Should we wait for that? We should not. We should not wait for someone to start someday. We should start reporting adverse drug reactions right now. If no one responds to your call, then go your own alone.
যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি কেউ কথা না কয় ওরে ওরে ও ভাগা কেউ কথা না কয় যদি সবাই থাকে মুখ ফিরায় সবাই করে ভয় যদি সবাই থাকে মুখ ফিরায় সবাই করে ভয় তবে পরাণ খুলে ও তুই মুখ ফুটে তোর মনের কথা একলা বলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে তবে একলা চলো রে যদি তোর ডাক শুনে কেউ না আসে
We learned a lot about ADR. We heard about pharmacovigilance. We now know about the magnitude of the problem. We know the consequences. We know how we are prepared. We know how we are reporting. But if we wait for all the stakeholders to come forward and to start reporting from physician, from nurse, pharmacist, or others, or if you want industry look at others, that is, someone else to start, it will never be started. So, if you are able to walk alone, you would walk beautifully with others. So, ladies and gentlemen, please start with your own. Just report. You don't have to be sure. Thank you very much.
Good.